Quick one before we start. If you're a birth worker and you don't know what your next steps in your business are, whether you're just getting started or you've been at this a while, I've made a free quiz for you. It shows you what stage your birth biz is actually at and what to focus on next, without any generic advice. It'll only take you a minute to complete, and the link is in the show notes. Right, let's get into today's episode. Hello and welcome back to the Pregnancy and Postnatal Entrepreneurs Collective podcast. I'm your host, Annie Frisbie, and today's episode is a little bit special. It's actually a republished conversation back from November 2013, and I've chosen to bring it back because, one, it's the most popular guest episode I've ever shared on the podcast, and honestly, listen back to it over the last couple of days, I can see why. At the time, I was only just starting out with guest interviews, and I remember being really surprised and delighted when Annie said yes when I asked her to be in the podcast. But in looking back on it again, the conversation really helped shape how I was bringing the business forward. And it's really important information in what it means to build a birthwork business to actually support you and not just your clients, which is everything that I am about. And the reality is every single lesson in this episode still stands today. If anything, it's even more relevant now. We talk about why your business has to pay you, not just financially, but in time, energy, and capacity. We talk about the importance of boundaries. We talk about how systems and templates and automation can completely change how your business feels day to day. And one of the biggest sentiments that comes from the conversation is that it's okay to want to have your business take care of you while you take care of your clients. Because if your business is leaving you exhausted, overwhelmed, or stretched too thin, you can't take care of your clients properly either. One line from Annie that really stayed with me since recording is the idea that your business shouldn't be just something that you run, it should be something that takes care of you too. And I think that's something that often we don't talk about enough in birth work, even though it is something that I like to talk about a lot. So whether you're brand new, a couple of years in, or at that point where things feel a bit messy or unsustainable or overwhelming, this episode is well worth a listen or a re-listen if you've listened to it before. Okay, let's dive in. So hello everyone and welcome to this episode. I am very excited to have Annie Frisbie joining me today to talk about how we can build supportive businesses so that they look after us as well. Annie has been a lactation consultant in private practice in New York City since 2011, and she is the creator of the Lactation Private Practice Essential Toolkit and the accompanying Lactation Private Practice Essential course. In 2018, Annie was honoured with the US Lactation Consultant Association's President's Award, awarding those that demonstrate extraordinary service to the association and the profession. Annie came into my life when I started listening to her podcast, Lactation Business Coaching with Annie and Leah. And I got to know Annie and Leah just through listening to their voices and learning all about the business end and ethics and supporting my private practice. So welcome, Annie. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. This is really fun.
Thanks so much. And it's really nice to be able to chat with you in person again. I have attended some of your deeper dives and they're always loads of fun. So I wanted to kind of just frame it a little bit, I suppose, because I know you had a similar introduction into this type of work as I did. So coming from the volunteer background and then deciding to take it on as a job and the challenges that can kind of come up with the idea of wanting to serve and help people, but also having to run a business as well. So maybe you can tell people a little bit about your start.
Yeah, I came to lactation after my first child was born, and I had trouble breastfeeding her and got help from an amazing lactation consultant named Kathy Watson Jenna, who was local to me. And just working with her changed my life and changed my family's life. And it was so fascinating, everything she was saying. And I was like, this is I just want to learn more. I want to find out more. And I had been going to my local LHA League meetings and really had found good community there. And so they were like, do you want to become a leader? And I found out that if I became a leader, I could also then become an IBCLC, an International Board Certified Lactation Consultant. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll do it. And I ended up staying with LHA League for a lot longer than just the 2 years I needed to get the hours to become an IBCLC, because I really felt like I wanted to make sure I was giving back to them. But the more I did, work as an IBCLC, the harder it became to just provide that volunteer peer support. I felt very torn between what I was starting to understand and see clinically in my practice about the complexities of the situation. And it became very hard to put that aside and just focus on encouraging people. And at the same time, I live in New York City. I'm in Queens. It's a very dense geographic area. And my other co-leaders had all left the city. So I found myself being the only little Leche League leader in Queens and having a private practice. And I was like, I cannot do this anymore. But it really felt hard to choose my business over my volunteer work because I did, like you said, have such a desire to serve other people and to help other people. But once I did that, I was able to really focus on my private practice fully and commit to it. And I'm really looking at it like a business and not just like one kind of lactation care that I was providing for people.
Yeah, it can be really hard coming from that voluntary sector to one be able to provide both different types of care. So being able to maintain those boundaries of the different types of care, and also, as you mentioned, about being able to kind of give the real, full focus to anything. Because sometimes when our attention is divided, it's harder to really focus on anything fully. So when you started focusing more on your private practice, what kind of way did that journey take you to being very much, I know for me, it was about doing the consults, and that bit of the work was always good, and I won't say easy, but that's what I did. That was my job. But then realizing that I also had a business to run at the same time.
Yeah, I've always been pretty business minded as a person. My father was an entrepreneur and built his own business from nothing and just always had modeled that for me in terms of the freedom and the flexibility that comes from running your own business. And also, even as a kid, I saw the responsibility and just that it is you. And so when I started my business, I knew that I had to make sure that it was sustainable from the beginning, that I had to keep an eye on expenses, and I had to think about what boundaries I was going to put in place to make sure I wasn't giving all of my time away for free, recognizing that any time that I was giving to my clients was time I was taking away from myself and my family. And so wanting to be really mindful of setting my prices at the right place, not just saying I'll give everybody everything forever and ever till the end of time, which is very much like a volunteer mindset to have. At the same time, even knowing all of that, I did spend a lot of time texting with my clients and really feeling like I have to make sure that they had a good experience with me because they paid me. And so kind of being able to, like, on one hand be this like business person and be sort of cold about like, okay, this is how it has to be, and then my heart would come in and be like, but the babies and the moms and I've got to help them. So certainly was not able to really follow even the advice I was giving to myself at that time. It took a lot of practice to really hold myself accountable to the boundaries that I wanted to give my business.
I think you said something really important there where you said, any time that I give to my clients is time away from me or my family. And I think sometimes if we don't frame it that way, all we're thinking about is I'm not giving enough or they need more from me. But we need to be able to balance that between looking after ourselves and looking after our own families. And you mentioned kind of having to look at pricing and things around that.
Yeah. And it was at the very beginning too, it was pretty much like a one-to-one, I guess, look at how much each consult cost me. I was homeschooling my kids from the beginning for a lot of different reasons, and I didn't have a lot of extra help with them. My husband worked a very demanding job. And so when he was around, he was great, but he didn't really have control of his schedule and he worked long hours in the film industry. So it was very much like, if I'm going to go to a consult and, their dad is not available because he's at his job, what am I going to do? Well, I'm going to find a babysitter. And so right away it was like, okay, a 3-hour consult baseline that is going to cost me $60 in childcare right there. So my pricing has to reflect that. And then even moving beyond that and saying it's not really right to, if I'm homeschooling my kids, spend the time that I'm homeschooling them actually, texting with my clients and providing that follow-up support. So then it becomes about, okay, well, I actually need more time with the babysitter. It can't just be a door-to-door calculation. There's other things that my want to make sure my kids are getting what I made a promise to them when I homeschooled them, which was that I'm going to be present for you. And so that right there was just setting my pricing. So I had to pay those expenses. I had to allow for extra childcare expenses. And I also had to pay for my business expenses and have some left over for me. So really recognizing, for me, I think from the beginning, I've always seen that the only reason to have a business is so that you can pay yourself, not just so you can have a business and be doing the thing. The business has to pay you, and it has to have the capacity and the potential to pay you, to grow what it's paying you and to keep paying you more. And so I did not certainly do it well in the beginning. I did make a lot of mistakes. Kids are great. They're very flexible. It all worked out. It's fine. But I do look back and I have some definite memories of where I know that I wanted to be with them and I wasn't, because I was doing something for my private practice.
Absolutely. And I found that myself as well when I started. So I teach antenatal classes as well as lactation work. And like that, I found that I was constantly replying or trying to send out a plan when I should have been sitting down in homework or getting lunch ready or those type of things. So I had to learn to adapt how I structured my work day to stop that from happening. And it was only when I really decided that my work was work and a business and not a hobby or a nice thing to do that I was really able to put those boundaries in place.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was taking it seriously as a business was something I always wanted to do from the beginning, but it wasn't always what I put into practice at the beginning. But making that shift did lead to me making some decisions about our family. It was definitely what led us to stop homeschooling. Unfortunately, right before the pandemic, when they sent them back to us, and that was great. And I love them and they're wonderful. Having a private practice that I'm putting everything into really needs me not to have those other responsibilities like homeschooling. It just became mutually exclusive. And so then the shift has become, when I sent them to school, and I missed them a lot. I was really used to being with them as much as I was ready for that change to happen. And, I don't say all this to be like, I'm a woman and a mom. So of course, like my kids are my life. Like, I don't mean it in that way. For me, that was what I had created and what I really enjoyed that time. And when it was time for it to be over, I was ready, but it was also, there was a grieving process there too. And so for me, it then became about not wanting my evenings to be taken up with client work. And that's what's really driven so much of my work into like creating systems and creating templates and creating plans so that everything that I have to do outside of the face-to-face time I'm spending with my clients can take as little time as possible. Some things don't do that. They don't fit into that box. But for the most part, I do feel like I'm not having to spend a lot of extra time outside of the visit, that the work that I've put in to creating that does that for me.
Absolutely. And I think people can find it really hard to either implement those processes or to pay for the technology that helps those processes, because it can feel very much that we need to take any of the money that we are coming in to either live or do what it is. But I know for me, it was only when I started to build in some level of automation that I found that I actually was able to do the work that I'm good at, which is sitting with the clients, you know? So having a booking system rather than going back and forth with emails to, you know, taking up time to do that, having templates for my plans that I could send out easily afterwards rather than having to start from scratch every time. And yes, there's cost involved in getting those things, but the time I get back is worth so much more.
Absolutely. And we tend to think about this sort of like time or money thing as being kind of this binary. It's either your time or your money. And that's, yes, it is. There is that place where you're like, okay, I am spending this money right now to save myself time later. But what you don't realize is that for a lot of the things that you're putting into place, the time, this money that you're spending right now is just being spent right now. And then the time that you continue to get back over and over and over again, it accumulates. If you're in this for the long haul, there are things that I've set up inside my, some of these protocols that I've written. I wrote them like 5, 6 years ago. I still use them every day. I update them every couple of months. Takes me not that long because they're in really good shape, and it's just about swapping out the links that are in there and updating the wording. And every once in a while I have to rewrite one completely from scratch, but that's also, at this point, it's fun because now I'm like writing from all of the experience that I've had working with clients. I've got much more, deeper clinical knowledge. So then that's like, doesn't even feel like work. That's just like, oh yay, I'm gonna rewrite this protocol because I learned a lot of new things since I first wrote it. And when you have that time, other things can happen, other possibilities open up. You can start a podcast, you can look for these other things that you might like to do. So just because it's your time doesn't mean that it is costing you nothing. And it might be costing you way more than whatever dollar value of the thing that you're going to spend money on or the system you're going to put into place. Like, it's not really the same kind of trade-off.
Yeah, it really isn't. And even if we were just to compare money for money, if we think about how much time we might spend, how many hours a week we might spend on those little jobs, and we didn't have to do them anymore, then you could fit in more consults and get more money, so it can work out both ways as well. But definitely for me, the payoff was in being more present when I was at home and being more present when I was at work, because I could concentrate on the two different things separately when there was systems in place to support me to do that. So what else can people do to kind of build a sustainable, supportive business that is supporting ourselves and our families rather than being what can sometimes happen, which is what I would call an expensive hobby?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, like you already said, it's not a hobby. It can't be. And if anything, maybe you can't think of it as more than that for yourself, but your clients deserve for you to treat it as more than a hobby, because it's not a hobby for them. This is their life. This is their baby. They want somebody that's going to show up and take this seriously because it means everything to them. And being a professional is more than just, I took a bunch of trainings and I know how to do this kind of, these assessments. And it really is about the whole package of care that you're giving to these families from the very first point of contact, from their first interaction with you, giving them that sense of security and professionalism that you're going to treat them with respect, and you're going to show up for them and you're going to be available for them. And when you create that atmosphere, that is also what allows you to set those boundaries, because that you've created that respect, you've shown them that you respect them, you've built that trust. So that when you say, I don't respond to texts or emails after 5 o'clock, they don't feel threatened. They understand that this is coming from somebody that genuinely desires to give them high quality of care and has boundaries. I think we think, and I say we because, and I include myself in that that we think that that sort of on-call availability and I'm going to drop everything and answer your question makes our clients feel safer. And I really don't think that it does. I think it can make them feel more anxious more nervous, less able to kind of let time do the work that we know that it needs to do. So if they're coming to us and they're texting us at 9 o'clock at night with a question, we're like, oh, I better answer it so they feel better. What does that tell them? That actually tells them that this question they had was so important and so like life shattering that we had to drop everything to answer it, that it couldn't wait until tomorrow. When most of the time, listen, if it can't wait till tomorrow, you're sending them to the ER or you're calling their doctor. Like there's, we really have to put it into that perspective, which is we cannot be so worried about what is going to happen to our clients that we treat everything like an emergency, because nobody else does that, and it is not what is required.
And people wouldn't generally expect to be able to say, text their physiotherapist at 9 o'clock at nighttime and get an update on their plan or their physical exercises that they were to do. And you mentioned there as well how sometimes it can actually have the opposite effect on the client and reducing anxiety. And another thing that can happen is that if we always respond quickly, and then one time we don't, then they might feel that they're not being looked after now or they're being let down. Whereas when the boundaries are there and they're clear and everybody knows what they are, everybody feels safer.
I totally agree. And I know you have doulas in your audience that listen to this, and that relationship that you have with your doula client during birth obviously is very different. Like they text you, you're right there for them. They are going through a singular experience that is limited in scope. Like that labor process will end. It is going to be over. But while it's happening, yeah, there's an urgency about everything that's happening. When after the baby comes, it changes. Yes, they do need that support. Do I wish that every family had like this, had all these people that could just be around them all the time and help them every minute of the day? Yes, I wish that. Like I wish there was always some, loving auntie that could hold the baby while, the parents get to sleep. But at the same time, we can foster their resilience. They're more like teenagers than they are like newborns, our clients, in terms of what they need. They do need us to be there for them. We are paying attention for things that they don't even know to look for. But we are also not matching their energy around the urgency of certain things. And that's, I think, also similar to, when you're doing doula work, and I had a doula, so I know what she was like for me, is that her calmness and her like just ability to be like, yeah, I'm here and I've got this. And knowing that she wasn't going to jump in with anything prematurely, like that was what really helped me relax and do what I needed to do. Yeah. So I think it's similar.
Yeah, as the professional in the room, whether we're a doula or an educator or lactation or postpartum, we're taking the role of that professional, of that calm, centered person. And as you mentioned, not matching maybe that anxiety or that level of urgency that our clients may have, because that's what they need from us. They need us to be that calming force and to be the guide and, help with this transition process, because anyone, if they're in their pregnancy or birth or in the postpartum period, they're going through a phase of transition and they need someone who understands that phase to help them along the way, but to keep that kind of calmness about it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think about even looking back, like clinically on both of my children had problems, and just that calmness that you talked about that Kathy brought in, and she helped me with both of my kids. And like looking back, I'm like, oh gosh, like there were things that were happening that were like not great, like scary. And I never felt that. I never felt like I needed to be afraid. And I did feel like when I was home, I knew that, I don't know. I knew that I could call her, but she gave me so much in that time that she really made me feel like I had this and that I knew what I was supposed to do next. And but that I could reach out if I needed to. And that just helps so much. Like when you're going through something, especially the first time, you just need to know that like it's going to be okay. Like, even like when it's not okay, you still want to, tell people that you're there for them and that you're holding them and that you can handle it. If they don't have to handle it, but you can handle it.
And for us to be able to maintain that type of personality or that type of calmness, we need to be looked after as well. So we need to not be running around spinning in circles. So we need to have something that helps care for us too.
Absolutely. And that's really what the last couple of years I've really been focusing on in the other work I do in lactation, writing and speaking and teaching has been around this idea that your private practice isn't just an extension of your clinical work, and it isn't just a way to have some checks to deposit. It really needs to be bigger than that, and it needs to take care of you. So the same way that you're coming in there to take care of these families, you need to feel like your private practice is taking care of you in that same way, that you're not worrying about the daily operations. Like, that's something where you've created whatever it is that works for you, whether it's a person who is an admin for you, or whether it's these automatic processes, but really thinking about it, is it serving you? Is it giving you that, that is it creating that calmness in you? And yeah, I mean, it's scary being a business owner for sure. Like, I don't mean to say like you can achieve the Zen state of like, it will all be fine. I mean, I certainly, even like 3 weeks ago, I had a week where I was like, I have an empty slot. I guess my private practice is over. Like, that's it. I'm never going to work again. Everybody hates me. I don't know. Like, this is where I go like emotionally. But then what I can do is I have a way to look back and I can see like, okay, well, here's how many consults I've done for the year. And here's what I know historically over the last couple of years, the average number of consults that I want to do in a year. Oh, look, I'm on track. I can enjoy that gift of that afternoon off without feeling like I have to make something happen right now. I can put it into context and I can have peace about it.
Yeah, and that has been a big thing for me as well. And I mentioned before we started recording that I fell down the stairs today and hurt my ankle, which means I cannot do any private practice in home work this week because I'm not allowed to drive. And that could have been very panicky, that could have been very much, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? I'm losing a whole week's income, or that type of way. But because I've been able to build a sustainable business where I pay myself the same every month rather than paying what's left over, then I know that sometimes if there's bumps in the road, that there's a little bit of reserve there that I still get paid, and that I can pivot and I can try and drum up some work for some online consultations this week. But being able to have my business support me means that I didn't have to go into panic stations this morning.
Yeah. And that is similarly not having to feel like you have to say yes to every consult request that comes in because, well, what if I don't? It can be a default position of like, well, this might be it. This might, I might be done in 2 weeks, that nobody's going to call me again. And so squeezing people in, working too late at night or getting up too early in the morning or giving up your weekends just in the name of like, making hay while the sun shines, I guess is the, just like it could all go away. But if you do that, you're never going to stop doing that. That will always be how you operate. You've set yourself this expectation within yourself that this is what it feels like to be successful. What does it feel like that my business is going well? It feels like I'm exhausted. It feels like I'm ragged. It feels like I'm killing myself. That is not what it feels like to have a successful business. Successful business lets you say, I need a day off. I need a week off. I will be okay when these bumps in the road come up. And then even a bigger picture, like, and this might not be where you're at when you first start out, but another goal to have in mind is that your private practice also needs to grow to the point where like, well, what if you needed 3 months off? Could you handle that? What kind of cushion do you have? What kind of reserves do you have? Or what kind of other contingencies do you have in place? So I've been doing this since 2011. So that's been a while now. I've recertified twice, and I had contractors working for me, which is I really enjoy it. If you like collaborating with other people, having a group practice is awesome. But they were always contractors where, you work, I pay you, you don't work, I don't pay you. That's really kind of the extent of it. And I really wanted more for that relationship. So I just recently took on my first full-time employee who is working for my practice. And part of that is that, she asked me for, can you give me maternity leave? And I really stopped and I was like, you know what, I could. And I'm going to trust in that. I'm going to trust that my business has taken care of me and it's going to take care of her too. And making that commitment to her that I was going to give her that same ability to have time off, for vacation and sick days and even maternity leave. It makes, I have to make sure that happens for her. But it also feels like I'm making a statement that we can do this. Like that's a thing. It'll work. I do think it will.
And I think it's a wonderful position to get to where you can then support someone else's family and someone else's income to look after themselves. And it's so refreshing to hear that you're bringing your own I wouldn't expect anything less, but that you're bringing your own ethos into that, in that your employee deserves that support as well, and that it's important for you that you're able to do that for both of you. And I think so many people, not everyone obviously wants to get to that point where they are hiring other people as full time, but definitely I think more people, myself included, need to think about taking on even contractors to start with, whether that is a VA or accounts or social media or whatever it might be, so that we can spend more time doing the work that we're really good at and pay someone to do the work that they're really good at.
Definitely. And when you find those people that do come into your life to do that kind of work, it does feel really great that that you can give that opportunity to them. And making a commitment to another person when you are hiring them to do work for you that you're going to pay for, it does drive you to make those decisions of like, oh, I have to make this happen. I brought this person on to do this job so that it would save me money. Well, I better make it real. Like I better not then just fill all that extra time with more work or stress. You have to find that balance of like being attentive to your business, being alert to, aware and on top of things, and that, being complacent about the financial aspect of being a business owner. And at the same time, really keeping in mind that the whole goal of this is not to make it possible for you to work more, to make it possible for you to work the way that you want to work, and to be able to have a sustainable life, to feel like this is not just all that I do and a constant source of like, what is it now, but also like I go to work, I work, I come home, and I'm doing other things that are valuable to me. I don't really like to call it work-life balance because it makes it sound like you have to have equal amounts of work and equal amounts of life, but more about your work is a part of your life and wanting it to be not not like a part of your life that is dragging down the other parts of your life, but integrated into who you are and how you want to show up every day and what you want to be able to say in 5 years looking back about how you spent that time.
Absolutely. And part of the reason why I even started the podcast and the collective was because I was finding so many of my peers and my friends who were in birth or postpartum work, they were wonderful at the work, but they were finding it really hard to make the business work, and then eventually gave it up and either just stopped working completely or went back to a 9-to-5 job. And I really feel that it's important that people who want to serve in this way are able to do it, but as you mentioned, in a sustainable way that sustains them and their families. So have you any more kind of final tips or advice for people in building that type of business?
Yeah, I would say give yourself time, be patient with yourself. You do not have to hit the ground running with all of the things right away. Focus on what is going to be most immediately impactful. So you, for example, speaking in the early stages of your practice, maybe you just started or you're a couple years in, you do not need to have a social media presence that is posting a gazillion times a day and interacting and talking, building a community in your DMs. You don't need to do any of that unless you're like, okay, but yeah, I love social media and I'm really good at it and I'm making great content that people really resonate with. But if you're like, that sounds really hard and I feel like I need to pay somebody to do that for me, is that really the best use of your business funds right now? Or does it make more sense to say, um, I don't know. I always put this out there as like what I think is like the best idea for for building your business at the beginning, which is like, might it be better to offer a free group, support group every week in your community and help people that are in your community know you as a person that isn't going to cost you a ton of money every month and create something that you now are responsible for, the social media presence that you can't, now it's out there, you can't let it lay fallow, or that's even worse apparently, I don't know. So I think really looking at it and saying what is going to help me right now. And for most people starting a private practice in lactation, it's looking smaller and looking locally that is going to have more of an impact than trying to establish yourself as a brand or participate in conversations on social media about anything.
Absolutely. And people can get very caught up in what they're going to call themselves and what colors they're going to use and what their logo is going to be. But actually getting out into your community and making contacts with expectant parents or with other professionals in the area is going to be much more effective for that client work, to bring in actual clients who are near you, than having this worldwide social media presence.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I think it's even more true now than ever before, where after coming out of the pandemic, and that really was like a boom period for social media and for, all of there's so many people creating great stuff for social media in lactation. Like Rachel O'Brien is like the main person that comes to mind about that, where it's like helpful. And she's creating things that, like, even as a professional, I'm like, I love this. Like this helped me. But we are, wanting so much to remember that we're all people too, and not just faces in a box on a screen, and making those in-person connections in your community, especially with other professionals, is really a part of reminding us like what this work is grounded in, which it's grounded in other people and creating that community, that circle of care for families that you're a part of, that you're not doing it alone and you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it for, to get really cheesy about it, like you're doing it for the future generations. Like you're doing it for, as a gesture of hope in the world, that like, we're going to feed this baby today, and this baby is growing up and going to be a person and going to do things. We don't know what this baby is going to do. But it all starts with feeding this baby today.
Absolutely. And it's wonderful to kind of circle back to those core values of to what brings us into this work, and what brings everyone that I've ever met into birth or postpartum work is that care, and wanting to care for those families, wanting families to have those positive beginnings where they feel looked after and where their babies are fed and where they're not scared. Being a new parent is scary, but that it isn't so overwhelming that they feel that they can't manage. That's what birth and postpartum work is about. It's about creating that care for the future, for those future families, for those future babies. And when we are able to give ourselves and our businesses some of that care and attention as well, it means we're more likely able to impact on more people, because we will maintain our capacity to do that. We won't get burnt out. And if people do create well-established businesses, can give back as well in more ways.
Absolutely. Always. And when I give talks, I have this quote from a book called Emergent Strategy by Adrienne Marie Brown, where she says, we all have the capacity to heal. Healer is a possibility in all of us. And I like to think about that, not just that I have the capacity to heal, but this parent in front of me has the capacity to heal. And this baby has the possibility of healer inside of them too. And that I can't do that. I can't communicate that from a place of frantic and ragged and not taking care of myself and not looking after my own well-being and my family's well-being. I can't communicate that to these people. And that's what I want. And because it's what I think is possible.
I think that's a really lovely quote. So I'll be looking that one up so I can have it for myself. And I think it's a lovely way to end our conversation, Annie. And thank you so much for being with me today. Would you just let people know if they want to find out more about you and the work that you do, where is the best place to find you?
Yeah, you can go to my website, which is paperlesslactation.com, and you'll find I have a blog that's all about private practice. A lot of it is about technology, using electronic charting platforms. And then I have a podcast, the Lactation Business Coaching Podcast, which is you can listen to. We've been doing it. We just recorded our 5-year anniversary episode, which was really fun to do. And you'll find I have an online learning platform that offers continuing education and other resources for lactation consultants.
That's great. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for listening today. I will be back with you next week and we will chat soon. Thanks, Annie.
Thanks, Neve.
Before you go, if anything in today's episode had you nodding along or thinking, yeah, that's me, don't leave it there. My free quiz helps you see what stage your birth biz is actually at and what's worth your energy right now, so you're not second guessing every decision or following advice that doesn't fit. It'll only take you a minute to complete, so click the link in the show notes and find out your birth biz stage and what your best next steps are.